The writer, author of one of the most popular books, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Mr. Stephen Richards Covey, has said one very beautiful line. Always treat your employees exactly as you want them to treat your best customers. Hello everyone, a very good afternoon to everyone who is watching this video tutorial. Today, we are going to learn about few very interesting topics like performance management system and performance improvement plan. To start with, we should first know what exactly performance management system is. So when we say performance management system, a performance management system is the systematic approach to measure the performance of employees. It is basically a process through which the organization aligns their mission, their goals, objectives, etc. with the available resources, the system, and sets the priorities. These systems are often based on organizational as well as job-specific competencies which need to be obtained for successful job performance. So in a way, in a layman language, maybe we can say that performance management is simply an ongoing process of communication between a supervisor and employee that occurs throughout the year in support of accomplishing the strategic objectives of the organization. It is basically a direct or indirect link between the organization and an individual's goals. So when we talk about performance management, it is actually an amalgamation of different terminologies like goal setting, feedbacks, individual development plans. When we talk about all these things, when we bring them together, it actually forms performance management system. Now, while we go ahead, let's understand what are the different steps included in performance management system. When we talk about performance management system steps, so the steps included in performance management system are four, starting with the business role. So when we say business role, what do we mean by business role? We have to actually set expectations. We have to actually explain the job description to the person. We should know what are the job skills or knowledge required for that particular role. What are the individual skills or knowledge required for that particular role? The second step is performance planning. Once the expectation setting has been done, now we have to see how do we achieve the set standards. How do we actually achieve the expectations or the expectations that have been set by the other person. Like for example, when a new team member enters a team, the manager tells him or her how he has to work in the team. What are the things that he or she needs to achieve? So that is the first step. The second step is planning about the performance, planning about how you achieve what is expected out of you. The third step is performance development, where we talk about things like individual development plan and individual goals and organizational goals. An individual development plan is nothing but a detailed plan of how an individual will succeed in both personal as well as professional ways. Fourth step and the last step in performance management system is performance measurement. So performance management is actually evaluating the performance and checking for any deviations and then taking corrective actions. So once we know that what are the deviations that are happening in the performance of an employee, so one is expected and the other thing is what is delivered. So the difference between the two is actually calculated by evaluating the performance, which is known as performance measurement. Now, friends, let us try to understand why is there a need for performance management system. So as we were just talking about a few terminologies like goal setting, IDPs, or individual development plan or feedbacks, reviews, etc., let's understand what is the actual need for these. So basically, a performance management system is needed for the following things. The first one is to improve the company profit margin, which means that if the performance of employees is good, it impacts the level of productivity, which directly impacts the revenue and company profit. Also, it helps in scaling the business by growing talent. The second thing says is to guide personnel along a suitable career path. So basically, it says that when you have to guide a personnel along a suitable career path, you have to actually work on an individual development plan. We have to make our employees understand the importance of IDPs. The employees should be asked to focus on their career development by working on their development plans for growth and development of both technical as well as soft skills. The third thing is that performance management is needed to furnish staff with valuable and progressive feedback. So basically, I think one of the most important things that we need to keep in mind is that we should always try to develop a culture of feedback in the organization to create a healthy environment where everybody can communicate openly without reservations. The aim is to build a high performing team by getting continuous feedback. The fourth thing says to ensure staff attains SMART goals. So when we say SMART goals, we mean to say goals are or goals that we are setting should be specific, should be measurable, should be attainable, should be relevant, and should be time bound. So goal setting is very important to allow the team members to drive results or a particular behavior change within the organization. It helps them to divide their attention in a planned manner. So when you have goals set, you know how you have to divide your time and how you have to work on different tasks or different priorities. So basically, a team member has to decide a future roadmap and focus on a particular period. The last thing says to ensure employee goals relate to and advance organizational objectives. So basically, we should ensure that this entire process, when we are actually doing performance management, we should always ensure that an organizational goals is directly aligned with individual goals, or vice versa. Maybe the individual goals should directly be aligned with the organization's goal. Now let's understand. Now there are certain reasons why performance management is needed, but how do you decide which one is an effective performance management system? So basically, when we talk about the effectiveness of a performance management system, there are certain things that need to be kept in mind. A performance management system should be one which is continuous, which is approved by management or senior executives or senior staff, which incorporates feedback culture in the organization or the feedback mechanism as a mandate and not as a routine, which is result based, and last, which is user friendly and gives you an overview of performance management activities. Now, let's move on to the types of performance management systems. There are different types of performance management systems in place. So let's understand one by one what are the different types of performance management that are there in place. So starting with the first one, which is general appraisal method. So as per the general appraisal method, it's a very commonly used performance management system, and it is used by many organizations. So basically, under this performance management system, there is a constant interaction between the manager and the employee all year round. It includes regular reviews of an employee, job performance, employee skills, and employees' achievements, growth, and overall contribution to the company. So basically, when we talk about the pros and cons of this method, so there are certain pros, certain advantages you can say of this type of performance management system, which is an employee gets continuous feedback, an employee gets continuous evaluation of what he or she is doing, how he is performing. Because of this, what happens is that the gaps in performance can be identified very easily and can be identified timely. So when you identify the gaps on time, so what happens is that there are lesser chances of expectation mismatch, or you can say misunderstanding. And also in addition to this also leads to increased engagement because the manager and employee are having continuous interactions. They're having continuous discussions around their performance, around their tasks, around what they're doing. So because of this, there's a lot of engagement that happens in the organization, which in turn leads to lesser attrition, or you can say increased retention in the organization. So because people are very, very engaged, they don't look out for opportunities that often. But at the same time, when we talk about the disadvantages of this type of performance management system, it is a very time-taking process, as the manager has to every now and then involve himself into discussions with the employee, which is obviously a time-taking task. When we talk about the second type of performance management system, which is known as 360-degree appraisal system. When we talk about the 360-degree appraisal system, we can say that is this the most commonly used performance management system. Most of the IT organizations are using 360-degree performance appraisal system. One of the organizations, in fact, that I worked with was also using the similar kind of appraisal system. Now here, what happens is that the feedback is collected, the feedback about your performance is being collected with every stakeholder who is related to the employee. So for example, the manager, the peers, the subordinates, right? And the other colleagues, and also most importantly, self-assessment. So all these areas are covered while the performance is being evaluated. So all these parties are going to participate in evaluation of performance of one particular employee. So when we talk about the pros and cons of this type of performance appraisal, of this type of performance management system, we can say that this is a very increased, very, very self-aware kind of a process, because I am getting to learn about my feedback from so many parties, so many different people. So basically a lot of self-awareness, balanced view. It leverages strengths. So a lot of people are going to add on to what are my strengths, uncovers blind spots and development of skills. I get to know what are the areas that I can work on from different parties. So that will help me to know what are the areas that I can develop on, what are the skills that I can develop. The cons of this type of particular performance management system is that it sidelines positive feedback. So what happens is when you take feedback from so many parties, there is a chance, or there is a possibility that people speak more about your negative feedback than talking about the positive ones. It garners dishonest reviews. So what happens is that people might not feel very comfortable talking about the feedback for you, and they might think that there are chances of spoiling relationships, and because of that there might be dishonest reviews. Increases distrust in the leader. It's a very time consuming process because you have to collect feedback from different parties. And lastly, it provides biased opinions, because as I just mentioned that it is going to, because you're collecting feedback from different people, so different people can be biased towards one individual. So it depends on what relationship you have with the people, how much you're working with that people. So it actually depends on different factors. Moving on to the next type of performance management system, which is technological performance appraisal. So when it comes to technological performance appraisal system, it is actually there for measuring or evaluating specifically the technical ability of an employee. When it comes to evaluating the technical skill set, then we use the technological performance appraisal system. Basically, it is very useful for technical abilities or for evaluating technical skills, but it is not at all useful when it comes to soft skills. So actually we can say that it is not it cannot be uniformly applied in the entire organization. So that can actually be a con for this type of performance management system. Moving on to the next category of performance management system, which is manager performance appraisal. So what happens is that there are certain organizations who have a different process for evaluating the performance of individual contributors, whereas they have a different process for the managers. So basically, this manager performance appraisal system is focused on only evaluating the managerial side of a person. So if a person is playing a role of a manager in the organization, then this type of performance appraisal system helps in evaluating the management skills, the people management skills of the employee. This kind of fee management system, this kind of performance management system is actually good in a way that the manager is getting direct feedback from the team members. But on the other hand, there is also a possibility that the team members might not feel very comfortable giving the feedback directly to the manager, because obviously there is a fear of spoiling the relationship with the manager. If they come out with something negative, the manager might not like it, and that might spoil the relationship between the manager and the employee. So in a way, you can say that this feedback can be dishonest. Moving on to the next category, which is project evaluation review. So basically, this kind of evaluation is done when each project comes to an end. So what happens is that it is done after each project ends. So because of which there are very less chances of deviations from what is expected. So which is as written in the clause. So because of this, there is a regular feedback mechanism also which is developed in the organization, and there is very easy identification of deviation in work. But on the other hand, what happens is that each project is owned by a different manager. So it becomes very difficult to flow the flow of the flow of and as written in the cons. So basically, in the project evaluation review, because there is no single manager, in the sense that every project is being owned by a different manager. So a different manager is giving review or is reviewing the performance of every set of project for an employee differently. So it becomes very difficult for each manager to collaborate and then pass the feedback from one place to another. So that becomes a little difficult in project evaluation review. The next type of performance management system is employee self-assessment. So I can relate very well with this, the employee self-assessment method of performance management system. That's because in the previous organization that I was working with, I used to do it for myself. So what we used to do is that we used to get at the end of the year, we used to get a form which the employee had to fill, and the employee gets a chance to fill in all that you've done throughout the year and write about their own improvement areas and their own initiatives and whatever contributions they've made throughout the year. So this is one of the most effective ways, I would say that in the sense that an employee is feeling very, very valued, and also the employee feels empowered because I am able to write my own feedback, my own contributions and my own improvement area on my own. And later, when once I'm done with the assessment, this assessment goes to my manager who then reviews it. But on the other hand, it becomes little difficult because when the employee is writing the feedback of self on his or her own, so what happens is that it might be overemphasized. The employee might try to overemphasize their contributions, or maybe the employee might try to downplay their success in some way if they're not satisfied. So in a way it becomes it is not very trustworthy, if you can say that. This might misuse this employees might misuse this type of employee self-assessment. The last type of performance management system is the sales performance appraisal. So there are many organizations which are sales driven or which have sales related targets. So such organizations use this method where their sales targets are compared with actual performances. This type of performance management system is less subjective as it is more data driven, and it is basically based out of numbers, whatever numbers are, whatever sales targets you were asked to achieve. So you were asked to sell 10 products. How many have you sell? You've sold 8. So the analyzation of this kind of data is very, very simple. So it's not very subjective. But on the other hand, it is like not every organization can use this type of performance management system because not every organization is sales driven. Not every organization has sales targets, but organizations like Byju's, they are absolutely sales driven. Their main activity is selling, so they can very well use this type of performance management system. Now, when it comes to you choosing the best performance management system, so how do you choose the best performance management system? I think there's a very simple answer to this question, because when it comes to choosing the best performance management system, the thing that you need to keep in mind is the nature of the organization. So as I just told you that, for example, if for a manufacturing company which has blue collar employees, the performance will depend upon productivity. So for them, project evaluation review can do. But for an organization which is driven by sales targets, then we should go for sales performance appraisal system. Likewise, in IT organizations, you can go for 360-degree evaluation. But when it comes to smaller organizations where you do not have many stakeholders of an employee, you do not have many peers in the team, you do not have many subordinates in the team, so there you cannot go with 360-degree. There maybe you can go with self-assessment appraisal. So it depends on the type of organization that you are into. And also one more thing I would want to mention here is that it is not necessary that if you've chosen a particular type of performance management system, you have to stick with it. No, it is not so. In future, if you feel that there is a need for another type of performance management system, you can definitely go with it. For example, say today I have been using 360-degree performance management, but tomorrow I might feel that it is becoming very tedious, or it's a very time-taking process, and I would want to shift my performance management system from 360-degree feedback mechanism to self-assessment appraisal. Maybe for individual contributors, I will go with self-assessment method, and maybe for managerial level people, I can go with manager appraisal. So it is not necessary that you have to stick with one type of performance management always for till eternity. So it's not so. You can always change your performance management system. Now, Now, what happens is that we talked a lot about performance management. Now, there are different ways how you can manage the performance. There are different ways how you can evaluate performance. But what happens if somebody is not able to perform? What happens if somebody is not performing up to the mark? So there comes the performance improvement plan. So basically, a performance improvement plan is a formal document stating any recurring performance issues along with goals that an employee needs to achieve in order to regain good standing at the company, usually within a specific timeline to complete the plan. A PIP is to resolve workplace productivity issues and help even the most unlikely employee succeed in your organization. So in such cases, what happens is that the manager is actually advised to give frequent feedbacks to the person who's not able to perform well in the organization. So the feedback mechanism starts with a polite and a verbal feedback. But when you see that there are no changes happening or there are no improvements happening in the person, the manager is then, asked to share some strict feedbacks, some feedbacks that are written. And even after these written and strict feedback, if you feel that the employee is not able to perform, the employee is not meeting expectations as told by the manager, there comes in picture the performance improvement plan, which is a formal process. So what happens is that there is a performance improvement plan document which is being made by the manager, which as this says that, which has exactly what needs to be done by the employee, or with the targets given, with the timeline specified, with definition of what actually needs to be done. So basically, when this performance improvement plan is being made, there are certain things that need to be kept in mind. So this performance improvement plan is depends from organization to organization about the timeline, but generally it's a 4 to 6 weeks of timeline that takes place in a PIP. So we start with a 4-week plan, but in case we think that the PIP is not going in the right direction, the organization might take a decision to stop the PIP even before 4 weeks. And similarly, if we think that the PIP is going in the right direction and the employee needs some more time probably to improve, then we can definitely extend the timeline of the PIP from 4 to 6 weeks. After this entire plan has been made, the employee and the manager have to sit maybe on a weekly basis or every third day. They have to sit together and discuss about what progress has been made so far. Every week, the progress on the performance improvement plan should be talked about so that we know where we are heading. So what happens is that after the performance improvement plan feedbacks are given, we actually kind of have an idea as to either the employee is going to fail the PIP or the employee is going to pass the PIP. So if the employee passes the PIP, if the manager thinks that now what he's performing is up to the mark, is up to the level as he expects, then we can definitely say that the employee has passed the PIP. And we can definitely say that the employee has now reached to a level which is acceptable by the organization and the employee can resume services. But in cases where employee is not comfortable with the expectations that have been said or is not able to perform to the mark or the level that is expected of him, even after 4 to 6 weeks, that's where the organization needs to take a decision and needs to say that the employee needs to be terminated. This has to be conveyed to the employee so that the employee knows that he has not been able to pass the PIP, or either way we can say that he has failed the PIP. Now there are certain things that we should keep in mind while we are starting a PIP or before we start a PIP. So the first thing and the most important thing is that never make the PIP a surprise. So what happens is that sometimes there are managers who are not very comfortable giving hard feedbacks to the people. So they are not giving hard feedbacks to the people. They give feedbacks in a very subtle way, which the employee might or might not understand. So in those cases, when the employee reaches the level where he is not at all able to perform and has been given feedbacks verbally, but very politely, the employee is not able to understand that he or she has reached a PIP stage. And when a PIP is being started for that employee, it becomes very difficult for that person to accept. So that becomes a surprise for the employee. So please, we should always make sure that PIP is not a surprise for the employee. Multiple feedbacks have been given to the employee and the employee realizes that there are gaps in performance. Secondly, let the employee know that PIP is a possibility. So I have seen a lot of people who take PIP as a very negative process. They think that PIP is a negative process to actually, ask the person to leave in a formal way. But it is not so. We should understand that PIP is a very positive process. It is a process which is actually giving another chance or scope to an employee to understand the gaps in his performance and basically make a comeback, and come back on the right track. Third thing is consider having others in addition to the employee present for the conversation. So what happens in organization is while the PIP conversation is taking place, there is the employee, the manager, and the HR also sitting in the discussion. So it's completely your choice to uh, to decide whom you want to include in the discussion. It can be the HR, it can be the manager's manager, it can be not subordinates, because it is absolutely a confidential process. So subordinates should not be included in this. But yes, you can definitely include the skip level manager or the HR, whomsoever you feel comfortable with. Have an overall consistent flow for the PIP. Draft the plan always with the employees' inputs. So basically, when you're drafting the employee, the performance improvement plan, always make sure that you have put in the plan according to what has been discussed between you and the employee. You and the employee both should be on the same page, should be in sync, because tomorrow if the employee says that this was not discussed with me and I don't know what these parameters are and why am I being evaluated on these parameters, and the entire purpose comes to an end. So which is not right. So we should always make the plan in consultation with the employee who is undergoing the PIP process. Understand the cultural implications of a PIP. So right in the beginning, when we are starting the performance improvement plan, we should let the employee know the cultural implications of a PIP. So we should tell them what happens if you pass the PIP, what happens if you fail the PIP. As I just explained to you all, that if somebody is passing the PIP means that now the person is performing up to the mark and can resume work in a normal manner. And at the other end also the manager can guide that person that the same similar kind of issue should not arise in future. But on the other hand, the employee should also be told that if the employee is not able to perform up to the mark and fails the PIP at the end of the 4 to 6 weeks timeline, then the implication is that the employee has to leave the organization or the employee will be terminated. So this is about the performance improvement plan. I hope you all have understood the concepts and the things that we discussed in today's video tutorial. And I look forward to do lot many more for all of you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks.